Hello and welcome to another tracecloud tutorial. In this video, we focus on traceability, and this is essentially the core of what tracecloud does and how it brings value. This shows you how you can connect your work with the work being done by other people, and then upstream and downstream requirements, and how you can manage change and evolution of your project. As usual, I'll start with a demo project, and in previous tutorials and videos, I've already imported a bunch of requirements, but right now they all are kind of standalone requirements. This connection process is essentially called traceability within tracecloud, and it's done on different levels. I have no problem in editing them, modifying them, and then I can also keep track of all the changes that are happening. I can define attributes and attach files, but essentially this folder is still being done in isolation. That essentially means that it's not connected to any other work that's happening in the project. So let's open up my business requirement, and let's say I want to connect this to the upstream requirement, and let's say I want to connect it to my release. So all I have to do is click create traces and then choose my release folder, and then based on that I can scroll and just connect it to release 2. Now those two requirements are connected, I can say that the relationship between this business requirement and the release requirement are clear. You can see it as well defined, and now we can go ahead and add more connections. Now to demonstrate this again, I am going to open up BR2, and then again to create more traces, I can trace it to my functional requirements. So I'm going to click create trace, I'm going to choose the folder functional requirements, and then I can choose the functional requirement to trace up to the certain business requirement. And then once that process is done, we should be able to see that clear connection and everything looks good and green. However, for some reason, if I were supposed to modify the business requirement halfway through the project, I would see that the business requirement would change versions and go up by 1. Additionally, since I have traceability enabled, anybody who's looking at this requirements, they should be able to see that this business requirement, which was once green, is now red. That means that something has changed over time, and people are going to have to take a look at it and see why it became red. Since I am the owner of this requirement, I could go ahead and then click on it and then clear the suspect trace and validate these changes. I could also always work with the business requirement owner to make sure these changes are good and validate them. And you want to ensure that all your downstreams are clear suspects so that everything looks good and your upstream is good as well. Just to summarize, typically you have requirements you're working on in isolation, but with traceability, what you can do is you can connect your work to people upstream and to the work downstream, and similarly the people downstream can connect to the work further downstream. So what you have is this entire traceability chain, and that gets formed when somebody modifies their requirements along the way. You pretty much have visibility to whether change propagated itself all the way across. It may look a little bit complicated, especially with all the different tools. For example, in this case, you saw me do it one requirement at a time. But later on in further videos, I'll show you how you can do this in bulk using other tools like trace matrix or a trace tree or a regular report. But for the time being, know that when you have a requirement, you can connect it to other requirements and the relationship is initially clear. But if somebody kind of modifies their requirement, then you get visibility. To somewhat switch topics, you're probably wondering what those boxes are under status. It might be a little confusing at the moment, but it'll definitely help later on as you get used to it. These statuses essentially tell you about your requirement. It helps you easily identify what type of requirement and what state your requirement is in. Over here you can see O. That O stands for orphan, and then you see the green arrow down. That means you have a good downstream, and then if there's a red arrow down like the one below, that means you have a suspect downstream. To clarify, O again stands for orphan, which means that there is no upstream that the requirement is connected to. Now let's switch over, and then you see the D. D stands for dangling. That means that there is no downstream requirement that the requirement is connected to. And then this concept carries over everywhere. As I've also mentioned in different videos, you can take a look at the folder metrics, and then the folder metrics will tell you exactly how many orphans you have, dangling you have, suspect downstreams or upstreams, and gives you kind of a holistic view of the folder situation. You can also just go to your home and see your project dashboard metrics, and that will also tell you exactly all the details regarding your suspect upstream, downstream, dangling, orphan, and more. So that was a quick overview of requirements and traceability. In other videos, I'll show you how to deal with traceability in bulk because you really just can't modify one requirement at a time. So if you need any help at all, again, don't hesitate to contact support@tracecloud.com. Hopefully this video helps.